Hey, it's Wesley with 22zines. I don't say this very often, but maybe I should start including it in my little intro. My pronouns are he, him. Yeah. I have been up to a bunch of shit in the last, year and a half. I haven't been posting a lot, and I swear this is not I'm sorry that I haven't been posting, because, I'm not sorry. That sounds so harsh to start this off with. Hey, thanks for being here. Happy that you're even caring to watch this vlog, video, whatever, in the first place. But, yeah, basically, I just want to talk a little bit about labor, and, in the context of my life. So yes, it'll be about me. It's a vlog. It's a personal vlog. And that's what I'm doing. I have a bunch of notes here that I've kind of been trying to put together in my brain, just make sense of what's been happening for me over the last year and a half or so. Because I'm at a pretty big transition point right now where I quit my job. I turned in my notice. I tried to give a little extra notice, beyond the 2-week expectation. I turned in a 4-week notice, and Sunday is going to be my last day. And so by the time I actually get this thing on YouTube, I probably will already have had my last day. And this is just the reason why this is sort of a special turning point for me is that I did not quit my job with another job lined up. I wasn't leaving this job for another job in the way that I've done a lot of things, or for another reason, where I've left jobs before, but it was specifically okay, I really need to focus on finishing school, or I really need to do this, or I have this other opportunity, or I'm moving, or there was some other external factor that was, causing me to leave the job. And this is kind of the first time that I've left a job just because it was a horrible environment for me. And I think it was especially disappointing because it was a library. It was a public library, and this is what I wanted to do. This is what I went to school for many years, and this is something that I'm really passionate about. And this was my first full-time library job. When I wasn't in library school, I had my grad degree, and now I'm in the job that I went to school for, and then I'm okay, I'm ready to do this job. And so when it turned out that this environment was not working for me, I think it was really hard for me to even get to that conclusion, let alone do anything about it, because it's so wrapped up in a lot of other thoughts and fears I have about, is it me? Is it that I personally can't handle the job that I thought I would be able to? Is it that I personally can't handle full-time work in general? Is it that I can't, that I made a mistake and that this, career path is not for me? Is it that, I just am not cut out for surviving in this world? That's, it sounds dramatic, but that's really what I was thinking. And, feeling a lot well, this is what I have to do. I know there's other sorts of jobs and things that I could do, but it felt like if I can't do this, then I certainly wouldn't be able to hack it in any of these other full-time jobs that don't have some of the benefits that I had with this one, in terms of a really stable schedule, and in terms of it being relatively low impact, and having benefits of being able to call out sick and having sick time, and just, this whole, environment. I think it just tied in a lot to just depression, and having had depression and feeling oh my God. One, coming to the realization that I can't handle this, and then thinking, what if I can't handle this? What if I can't handle the world? What if I can't handle all the things that you have to do to be an adult, self-supporting adult in this world, in my environment in America? And I just, obviously, I'm trying to sum up an entire year plus, and really frankly an entire lifetime and an entire society's feelings and concerns and realizations and worries into like a single vlog video, but it was really difficult to come to that realization, and it was just as difficult to figure out what to do about it. And you know, I've been seeing a therapist, and I've in therapy. I've had my therapist and my partner Sean, who have kind of said it really sounds like it's this job, it's this environment, not you. I mean, it's you in the sense that you are not a good fit for this job. This job is not a good fit for you. It's just it's a clash. But it's not that you are doing anything wrong or that you can't handle it. So let me just talk a little bit about what this job was and some of these stressors, and then I'll talk a little bit of how they played out in other things in terms of like zines, in terms of posting on you know, connecting with creative communities on YouTube and otherwise, like sharing things. Yeah. The job that I had, so I was in a public library. I'm a reference librarian is my job, and I really love public libraries as resources, and I don't even mind them as institutions necessarily, in terms of, I don't think that there are necessarily a lot of like, I think that the institutional aspects could be improved, but I don't have any fundamental problem with it being, you know, a government-funded entity, that kind of thing. What I realized about this environment is it just, the specific library that I worked at, and it may have to do with the library, it may have to do with the town that it was in and sort of the culture and community of that town. It may have to do with the administration and the director of that library in particular. And it's probably all of these things and more, and it's all just factoring in. This job was entirely focused on appearances, to the point that it was a detriment to the actual services of the library, or other values that were really important to me, things that I felt were a lot more important than appearances, things like accessibility, things like transparency, things like you know, communication and collaboration, and things that generally were, you know, other things, even just the baseline services of the library, the use of finances, like all of these things, and it just felt like issue after issue after issue that just played out in every way. There were many things that were just kind of on a day-to-day level, in terms of having a director who didn't really respect or value or even want staff input at all, and didn't really value or respect or put any effort into the things that staff were communicating that they needed, which most of the time was things that the patrons needed. Instead, the whole library was basically run in service of small elite groups, put it that way. And I kind of, there's a whole lot of shit that was happening with my job that I don't necessarily want to get into all of that right now, because it's not the most important thing right now, at least for this video. But it was things like actions were always being taken to make things look a certain way, both in the physical space and just in the general, like, want to present oneself in a certain way. and so one example that I have, and this is, public knowledge, public information. The the library building was under renovation. So when I started, I was actually in an interim space. The library was going through a major renovation, taking like multiple years, and I joined kind of towards the end of that renovation project. And then there was a period where we were closing the interim space so that we could pack everything up and move it over to the new space. That entire process was done. It was just so badly planned in the sense that it was done way too early. We were moving into the building before we had a certificate of completion from the architects or any sort of legal occupancy. The construction foreman was always coming up and hassling us to be like, get out. We don't have the certificate that it's safe for you to be in here. And I don't mean he was kind of an asshole, but not for this reason. It was that our boss was not listening to him and was scheduling us and putting us in there when he's like, you guys are not supposed to be in here. What the hell are you doing? And all of that was, I think, done because the whole action was like, well, this is when we planned it to be done. This is when we told people that we expected it to be done. And so it's construction. It never happens that way. Construction projects, especially giant major ones like this, always have problems. And it's just stupid to try and, force your way into it too early, especially when it's unsafe. Unsafe for the staff, unsafe for the patrons, unsafe for the moving company, moving workers, unsafe for lots of reasons. And there were many outcomes of this, obviously, but the ultimate outcome was that we opened the building and announced the opening way too early. And as in before we actually had final inspections and everything. And upon the final inspection, the inspector, whoever it was, determined that the building was not ADA accessible. And oh my god, ADA compliant in terms of accessibility. The main thing was that the ramp at the front entrance was too steep. The grade was too high, and there were no landings where anybody who is using a mobility aid or anybody who needs to have places to stop and rest when they're going uphill didn't have any of that. And this was something that the architects... this is something that, so many people should have noticed up to that point. Architects, construction, anyone doing inspections sort of throughout the entire process. I wish I could say it was just kind of a simple mistake oversight, but after, being directly involved in it, I could see how much of this was just the result of people not even considering or giving a shit about accessibility. And so ultimately it had to legally be fixed within, we had 6 months or so, 5 months, in which it had to be changed so that it would be fixed so we could have our permanent certificate of occupancy. And as a result, the library basically opened up anyway. We opened, and the entire narrative was trying to focus around this is ridiculous that we even had to do that. That it's even, that they're forcing us to do this, and that, why couldn't we just be open? And there were people on administration levels, on, board of trustees levels, and patrons and donors, elite patrons, as I would say, who are all coming in and being like, oh my god, it is so ridiculous. This, supposedly, there's all these accessibility problems. It looks great to me, and just completely dismissing so much of it. When really and there are other accessibility issues, kind of big accessibility issues, that have to do with other parts of the building, but it's all technically legal. I don't know. There were just issues with that. There were issues about the safety of the building. and I say this just because this is the example that I use because it's sort of an easy thing to point to, because it's like actually like a legal problem, and so that is almost easier to justify. But so much went way beyond legal problems, and just it was representative of the overall attitude of not really being there for patrons, not being there for all patrons, and focusing entirely on appearances and on, it's the sort of place that cares enough about accessibility to the point where we can say, yeah, we're accessible, without actually communicating what that means, without, working without in conjunctly, like, back and communicating without communicating with people who, actually have certain needs that aren't being addressed, without listening to staff members who care and who work with patrons directly every day, and are trying to communicate needs. And the other disappointing thing is just how much the financial, how much money is being spent so inappropriately and so unwisely, entirely on appearances. It's just kind of sickening to see. And there's so many other issues. There are issues of disrespect. There were issues of not, of micromanagement, of completely being hands off, of, no support or praise for positive initiatives that staff would take on, and yet excessive criticism over mistakes that weren't anybody's direct fault, like, or things that weren't even mistakes, or, just, there's all that other stuff happening. But I think the thing that ultimately made me decide that the only possible solution was for me to quit and leave was the fact that the central values of this library were in direct conflict with my personal values as a human being and as a librarian. And that's something that it was really difficult for me to kind of realize is what was important to me as a librarian. Why am I a librarian? I kind of knew. I knew in general, like, what things I cared about, and I knew what I liked about librarianship, why I cared about it, and I knew enough that I could kind of communicate it in an advocacy sense, but not really in a personal mission sense as much. Or if I did, I hadn't really seen the alternative. It's sort of like when your values get pushback, it's when you really get the opportunity to look at them more closely. And I realized that a lot of my values for what I care about in not even just librarianship, but in my labor in general, what I want my labor to be doing, when I'm spending labor, when I'm spending energy on something, what do I want it to be going towards? What do I want to do with it? And I really realized that my purpose in my labor, the thing that I will feel that I want my labor to be going towards, is de-gatekeeping. I don't really have like a cute way of saying it, but basically I want to do the opposite of gatekeeping. I want to open gates. I want to demystify things. I want to make those things accessible and approachable in every sense of the word. As I was talking about, there were issues with physical accessibility. That's a big thing, but also just approachability and making things interpretable. I don't want knowledge that should be public information to be hidden behind a bunch of unnecessary doors or steps or bureaucracy, or, if someone doesn't already know something or already know exactly the right way to ask, that they can't break into it. I don't want it to be the result of finances. I don't want finances to be the thing that prevents someone from being able to approach information and to approach concepts and to try something new. And I want all of the I can't work with elitism. I don't want my labor to be in support of that or unintentionally reinforcing it. I really want my labor to be opening doors for people as much as possible. And that includes kind of showing people how they might be able to, empowerment, I guess is sort of the thing. Education, creativity. I think creative empowerment is really important. And just, I guess I could get into that more, but I think at the very least it's pretty clear that my job environment was giving me two options. I could either continue to force artificial barriers, enforce artificial barriers, artificial boundaries, elitism, exclusivity, private events, private interests, and, continue to have my labor go in support of that if I wanted to just kind of keep working there and have it not, just kind of keep my head down and keep working and make it feasible enough for me to do that. Or I would have to spend an extreme amount of labor on making a teeny tiny pushback, on the pushback. I was just meeting so much resistance from every direction that it was to the point where it was just literally not possible for me emotionally or mentally to be able to pursue this ungatekeeping this way, and being surrounded in this environment that not only, society in general is already this supreme gatekeeper, and this was really just not affording me any possibility of pushing back against that. I know you could say that every step that you take is like a teeny tiny chip, but I just feel like I have so much more to say. I have so many more ideas. I have so much more motivation and effort and leadership, and I have so many other good qualities that I feel like would be better spent in a place where I wasn't having to fight for months and months and years against an environment that doesn't want me. It's not even an issue of that it's not supportive, but it's neutral. It was I think this library in this environment was actively, it was not only not supportive, it was not welcome. I was not welcome there as a person who had these values. These values were not welcome. And in a public library, it is kind of insane to me. It feels so horrible, and this is why I was doubting myself and questioning myself so much, is that how could it be possible in this environment that my values and my perspectives are unwelcome? So yeah, I quit. And I was worried about a lot of things, and I'm slightly worried about what I'm going to do financially. I think just the level of relief and how right this feels intuitively to realize that I have enough self-respect to make sure that I am living in line with my values has been really transformative and really groundbreaking, even though I haven't officially had my last day yet. it's been amazing. It's been really necessary. I think I've seen just exactly how necessary it's been, and honestly, that level of relief and self assuredness and knowing that I am working towards living more in line with my values means that like 99% of the anxiety that I otherwise would have felt is just not there. Like, it's to a creepy extent. I feel like I am unafraid and unbothered to the point that I'm almost like worried, like, should I be afraid? I'm almost more worried about like the fact that I'm not afraid or that I'm not feeling any of these negative things than anything. And I think maybe that's just because it suggests how bad the environment actually was for me. Like, it was horrible. And interestingly, I think that this has also taught me a lot about what I want my other types of labor to be doing, is like why I am interested in zines. Because like there's sort of like two different types of zine labor that I categorize it in for myself. There's sort of the act of creating zines, the creative energy that puts in, and the self-expression in putting out my own zines. And then that's like one type of labor, and that I feel certain ways about that, and whether I'm inclined or not to do that is sort of a little bit more separate. And then there's this other labor that I have been interested in doing and that I have been trying to do in various capacities, which is my zine project, as I'll be referring to it. And so the zine project being the act of sharing zines, putting it out there, talking to people about zines, like preaching the word of zines, YouTube, sharing other people's zines, distributing other people's zines, in offering instruction or assistance or information for people who are looking to make zines themselves, for people who are looking how to find zines in libraries, like all of this other stuff that doesn't have so much to do with the actual act of creating zines, or just like casually reading other people's zines for me. And that is a lot of labor for me. It's more labor. It feels like more labor than just the act of creating zines for me. But it's really important to me, because I think all of those actions that I'm trying to take about talking about zines, spreading their message, and specifically trying to make zines accessible, trying to reduce the sort of mystique about them. And zines fit very naturally into that. It is very much like, oh, well, just make a zine. But, I think sometimes these punk or DIY communities can feel inaccessible, well, first in physical ways always, and in mental ways, but just kind of unapproachable in some ways, that they're like too blocked off in the way that they can be kind of intimidating. It's like, I want to bring things down to earth, I want to make it feel accessible, and I want to encourage people to just like, just give it a try. Or if you aren't interested in trying it yourself, it's like, okay, let's just break this down, let's talk about what it's really about. Let's give you the resources that are out there that I have gathered. Like, I've gathered a lot of resources and a lot of knowledge over the course of being involved in many years, and I don't want other people to have to do it that way. I want the knowledge that they need, or the knowledge that they crave, to be accessible enough. Hi, Milo. Hi, buddy. My dog wants to hear too. Hi, Milo. Okay, morning noises are happening, but that's okay. I'm almost done anyway. I really want zines to be accessible for people in the same way that I want. It's the same kind of labor. It's the same sort of thing that I'm doing at work, is that I want to gatekeep. I want to open gates. I want to open the gates to zines in many different ways. I want to open the gates to finding zines. I want to open the gates for people to share and distribute zines. I want to try and provide all of these things. And it's taken a lot of effort, not only to just do that, but to figure out how I want to do that and to find the best ways of doing that and the ways that are going to be most in line with my values, the ways that feel the most natural, the ways that, yeah. And I'm realizing kind of the extent to which I can rely on my intuition in that sense of, I know when this feels right, I know when this doesn't feel right for approaching this. I think in the past, I've been too concerned about, I've been taken up with sort of fears about, well, what if this doesn't work? Or what if actually the most effective way of communicating with people, of reaching people, is going to be in this method or this method? Like, what if people don't actually want to hear about things in this way? What if they want, a different type of format? Like, what if people want zine reviews? What if it really would make more sense and reach more people for me to do an online store on Etsy, for example? I'll get into Etsy in a whole nother video, but back in the day, I did have zines on Etsy, and I'm just like, no, it doesn't work. I'm not going to do it that way, and I'm not interested in doing it that way. And it's like a lot of this takes experimentation, and experimentation is not always easy to do, especially in kind of an online sphere, when I am focusing too much or concerned too much about how I'm going to reach people and like the best ways to do it, and things like just elements like consistency in posting. It's like, consistency is sort of a structure, and it's a structure that isn't necessarily always the best suited towards experimentation. For me anyway. Things like sort of the digital location, like what websites and things, like what things require what types of labor, and whether certain types of labor are going to be more worth it in one way or another. And there's just so many different components, because it's not, I think the reason it differs just from the act of like creating zines and raw creativity in that way, is that this isn't as raw. It is involving other people in another way, where I'm like intentionally trying to communicate and provide things and open doors and like organize things for other people. And that means considering other people in a different way and think what is the best way to do that. And it sounds really cheesy to say it out loud, but I really am, coming to realize more and more that the best way for me to utilize my labor, whether it's in the realm of zines or whether it's in the realm of work, is to do so in a way that aligns most closely with my values. And the way in which I can know if something aligns with my values is, like, I'm very good at the analytical component of it, but I think I can continue to rely more on the intuitive aspect of it and say, if this feels right, or if this doesn't feel right, that's enough of an indicator for me to not do it that way. Or to do it that way, depending on how I'm feeling about it. Like, to follow that intuition, to follow that instinct. And I think me leaving my job has been an indicator of that. Of like, that is something where, almost beyond practical components, like obviously those are going to factor in always, but I think I'm bringing in a little bit more balance by realizing, it's going to, I need to do it this way because it's just not in line with my values. So I have kind of a lot of feelings about just things that I have done or haven't done with my zine projects that I kind of wrote down. I was kind of going to talk about it, but really I think that about sums it up. And the specifics about what things worked out and what things didn't, what things felt right, what things didn't. That's kind of the next step that I can take and that I will take, is maybe to organize all those and say, okay, let's look at these experiments, let's look at these actions, let's say what worked and what didn't in the context or from the lens of are they in line with these values that I have realized and set for myself. And I've sort of had these moments of realizing important things about my values and about my life before. One of them, actually, I just have it on the wall here. Hang on. My art manifesto ended up being really important for me, and what I needed at the time was to clarify this. The art is for humans, not algorithms. Sharing, not selling. Art is love, not profit. Creation, not consumption. And that's always, I still feel that, and I think that's always something that's going to be really important to me. And so now I'm sort of seeing, well, I can see that sort of focus was about art in the context of capitalism and art in the context of money, which is always going to play a factor. And now I think I'm just taking the next step, almost of broadening that a little bit, of okay, now what about labor? Not just art, but anything that I put labor into, anything that I put effort into. What about not even just money, but in terms of these other values? Like, what if the point is not to do it this way? If the point is not to do this to make money, to earn a living, what is the point? What do I want to do with it? And I think having this central motivation, having this central value that I've been able to clarify a little bit more strongly, of wanting to remove gates, ungatekeep. I still need to find like a good way to say it, but like having that as my new and my next anchor, I think it's going to be really important. Yeah. So, all of this to say, I'm not doing tarot readings on Etsy. If you want a fucking tarot reading, just, email me. I'll do it for free. I don't give a shit. I can't believe I sold my soul to the Etsy devil twice. But, that's not what this is about, obviously. I guess, I'm hoping that now that I have this clarified, it will feel a little bit easier. It will flow a little bit more naturally for me to carry out that labor. For me to do that labor, I think it feels less and less like labor when it's in line with this value. And so I hope to be able to do that more naturally, and to continue to do that in the zine space as well as in the library space. Alright, I guess that's a good enough thing, which is good, because I gotta get ready for work. It's almost my last day. It's my last full shift, and then I got a little program on Sunday, and that is it. So I guess by the time you see this, I guess we'll see how it goes. If I post it tomorrow or whatever, I may be officially out of a job. And, more time to spend on zines, I guess. Alright, talk to you guys later. Bye.